How strong could ChiChi have become if the plot of Dragon Ball centered around her as a progressive fighter throughout the story where she experienced the training arcs that Goku had, or at least pushed her as a Z fighter with the likes of Piccolo, Tien, Krillin, and the others, instead of being the best mother and wife she always tries to be? Does she have the raw potential to become stronger than a Super Saiyan, and if so, at which point? Of course, the right answer will always be, she would be as strong as the plot needs her to be, and whilst that pretty much keeps it simple, there's still a lot of fun to be had when analysing her officially stated level of power in the original Dragon Ball story, and then implement that potential into the Dragon Ball story throughout Z in an active adventure role. Hit the like button if you're a fan of ChiChi. I know there are way more ChiChi fans out there than haters, who actually know what her character is all about. Now you may think ChiChi could get to the levels of around a human Z fighter at best, right? Well, you're about to find out why ChiChi had actually more potential than your average Earthling. And if you think a really strong ChiChi is impossible, go and watch how humans in Dragon Ball Super reach levels that can blink away Namek Super Saiyan Goku. I'm going to strictly focus on the potential ChiChi's body has, and what it could have been in a perfect world, given what we know about her as a fighter. We will be protecting her with the plot at times, just like Goku. So let's go. One of ChiChi's earliest displays of power was when she beheaded a dinosaur. She didn't shoot him, she threw the blade off her helmet, which would take some force to behead a giant dinosaur. Remember to when Goku whacked the pterodactyl? Now imagine he used a sword instead. I get the impression Kid ChiChi, at most, was around a power level of 10 at this point in order to kill that dinosaur with that force. 5 just seems too low, as that's Farmer with a shotgun level, and not even Dr. Grant can beat a T-Rex one-on-one, unless you play the video game. She also gets KO'd by Yamcha, but that wasn't really a battle or test of power. The dinosaur killing feat secures a power level of 10 for me, even if she didn't have a full understanding of her strength. A power level of 10 at the start of Dragon Ball is no joke, especially for a human. But she is the daughter of the Ox King. Just looking at him is enough to justify her raw potential and trained. At 18 years old in the 23rd Budokai of age 756, it is officially stated ChiChi had a power level of 130, growing 13 times stronger through just training with the Ox King in a few years leading up to the 23rd Budokai. She never competed in the 22nd Budokai as a martial artist, so it's likely her training began after the defeat of King Piccolo and his mission of killing off the fighters. Ox King probably wanted her to learn how to defend herself in future events following King Piccolo. We did see a glimpse of her in the anime with the Ox King during that time, and she was not doing any sort of training. She was still the little ChiChi that we saw at the start of Dragon Ball. Now her power level of 130 was just from raw training. She didn't know how to utilize ki blasts, she couldn't fly. During the 23rd Budokai, she hit hard and moved fast, but also had the potential to grow even further if she learned more about ki. At least to a level where she knew how to wield blasts or fire a Kamehameha. Her power was similar to Master Roshi, so it is possible. The Ox King possibly never completed his Turtle Hermit School training as he never learned how to use the Kamehameha in order to teach it to ChiChi. ChiChi had a major disadvantage in training, and it wasn't down to her potential, it was the lack of exposure to opportunities and other great mentors in order to grow like Goku did. Goku had plenty of that exposure. When it comes to ChiChi versus Videl from the Buu Saga after training with Gohan, I see this debated all the time. Crime fighter Videl was a slightly more dominant Mr. Satan, and after she learned how to fly, she became a better fighter. But could Hercule or Videl kill a dinosaur with a blade? Even if you push the answer to a yes, could she beat a dinosaur 13 times stronger? Or that being 23rd Budokai ChiChi? The answer is a no. ChiChi at that point in the 23rd Budokai could break Buu Saga Videl's kneecaps and make her squeal like a pig into submission. For those of you who want to know how strong the Ox King is, well, it's less than King Piccolo, who was stated to be 260. Ox King feared King Piccolo, so wouldn't have been over that. It's reasonable that Ox King is no more than Roshi and Goku at the 21st Budokai, that being 139. There is the power level of 900 for the Ox King in the Dragon Ball Movie 6 pamphlet, which, let's be honest, if that was true, he would have punched a hole through King Piccolo's face and could have snapped Raditz in half with a rage boost over his grandson being kidnapped. Dragon Ball over. Ox King was not stronger than King Piccolo. Roshi's training took Goku to around 139, similar to his own. But before this, Goku started Dragon Ball with a power level of 10. When Goku learned how to utilize Ki in the form of energy blasts, that already gave him a head start over ChiChi. Learning basic Ki principles improves the fighter, as proven with Videl. Although it wasn't an astronomical difference, there was still a difference in her combat power and speed. Goku learning how to use energy blasts, like the Kamehameha, plus being on an action-packed adventure, would put his power level to around 20 at the point he fired his first Kamehameha, a boost of 10 battle power. Goku had a power level of around 300 during the 23rd Budokai. Official sources state his Super Kamehameha was at 910 during the 23rd Budokai. A regular Kamehameha is at least a 2.2 times boost, so his Super Kamehameha is around a 3 times due to more charge, putting Goku's base at around 300 during that time. This explanation is supported when he uses a Kamehameha against Raditz, and Raditz states 924 and rising, meaning the Kamehameha was at least 2.2 times and then going higher the longer it was charged. A longer charge could be considered a Super Kamehameha, which makes sense. But yeah, that's how I calculated Goku's 23rd Budokai power level of 300, meaning he grew 30 times since the start of Dragon Ball compared to Chi-Chi's 13 times. Was it potential, or was it something else? Let's talk about Goku's training and mentors. Master Roshi, Korin, Mr. Popo, and Kami versus just the Ox King for ChiChi, the incomplete student of Master Roshi. How strong could ChiChi have become if she took Goku's training path? One thing you should know, she blitzes the other humans. Krillin, Yamcha, and Tien have nothing on her in terms of potential. Tien went from 180 to 230 between the 22nd and 23rd Budokai. Yamcha went from 140 to 180, Krillin 140 to 200. These three could train with Korin, spar with each other, and pretty much only grew by a power level of 50 in that time span of 3 years. Chi-Chi, she had 2 to 3 times their growth in that period with just the Ox King, growing by 120. She has far more potential than the other humans. But who else grew by 120 between the 22nd and 23rd Budokai? Goku, from 180 to 300. Look at the difference in mentors and plot power-ups, like the Sacred Water, and Chi-Chi grew that same amount of power as Goku did. So keep that in mind. Because imagine at the start of Dragon Ball, all the way to the 23rd Budokai, if Goku lived with the Ox King and trained with him for 6 to 7 years, or heck, just the last 3 years leading up to the 23rd Budokai, would he have ever reached a power level of 300 by that time? And that's a comfortable no. He achieved 300 under all of the mentors previously mentioned, as well as specific growth arcs. Goku's power level at the 23rd Budokai would probably have been around 130 if he swapped positions with Chi-Chi this whole time. 150 to 180 maximum, just because it's Goku, right? So let's build a whole new Chi-Chi from scratch. Let's deduct the Ox King training from her for fairness. She can't have that if we apply Goku's training arcs to her. Remember, this isn't a what-if story, just a way of seeing what Chi-Chi is capable of. First, let's provide an opportunity for her to learn energy blasts, or the Kamehameha like Goku did. She is capable, especially if Yamcha and Krillin can do it. Toriyama just never wrote her that way, but learning that would improve Chi-Chi's ki as an overall fighter, pushing her power up to 20 at the start of Dragon Ball. That is fair. Krillin started Dragon Ball with a power level of around 10 and grew to around 100 after 8 months of training with Master Roshi in preparation for the 21st Budokai. So because Chi-Chi and Krillin are both human, I will be fair and apply the same Roshi training boost of plus 100 to their power levels, putting her at 120 by the time of the 21st Budokai. Krillin grew to 140 by the 22nd Budokai, where Goku grew to 180. We can apply a similar training growth arc to Chi-Chi, where she could easily fall in between at about 160. This would still respect Goku having the edge in terms of potential due to his Saiyan battle prowess, but also rightfully treat Chi-Chi with more potential than the other humans. She isn't far off Goku though. Next, let's apply the Sacred Water boost. Goku's potential was unlocked, a 50% boost. This one I will keep the same for Chi-Chi, because she has shown insane growth potential during the 23rd Budokai in the main story. The Sacred Water, if she miraculously survived it, would boost her power from 160 to 240 during the King Piccolo saga. Now let's apply Kami and Popo's training, which raised Goku's power by around 40 over 3 years. During this time, Krillin's rose by 60 through Korin Tower training with Yamcha and Tien. Sometimes in Dragon Ball, humans get pretty good boosts compared to Saiyans. Not many people realize it, but they do happen. Now, both those training happen at the same time, so whichever option, I think it's fair to apply a plus 50 growth to her power level, which falls in between Goku and Krillin's. putting her at 290 by the time of the 23rd Budokai instead of 130. 2.2 times stronger from having the same mentors as Goku, as well as other various growth opportunities. In the 5 years time skip between Dragon Ball and Z, everyone took a huge hit in terms of power growth. Goku went from 300 to 416, and was stated he continued to train that whole time. Now, if ChiChi remained as an active martial artist and maintained her training, how strong could she get from here into Z? Let's say Goku and ChiChi got married, they still have Gohan, and Ox King will do more babysitting than he ever expected, so Goku and ChiChi can train hard every day as full-time martial artists. But either way, potential-wise, Goku and ChiChi could benefit from training with each other. Goku could potentially grow more than 116, and ChiChi could gain a reasonable buff training alongside Goku, or at least in competition if she was written that way. I will cap her time skip growth to 100 though, because of how everyone didn't get much of a boost during this time. So 390 for a power level. So ChiChi could have been this strong by the start of Dragon Ball Z. Also, a video game stated ChiChi had a power level of 300 just before Gohan was born, because she kept up her training. And even in Budokai Tenkaichi 3, ChiChi says she can whip the Frieza Force's ass. Those guys have power levels way over 1,000. And that's her in the role where she doesn't train at all, after hanging up the gi. Humans get a crazy potential boost at the start of Dragon Ball Z after the pitiful 5-year time skip boost. They train under Kami and reach insane levels that would have taken them 1,000 years in the original Dragon Ball. Even Yajirobe gets to an officially stated 970 power level. A Yajirobe who previously was on par with Kid Goku at a power level of around 180 to 200. So he gains a 5 times boost with Kami, even though he trained with a lazy attitude and ate sweet corn non-stop. If you accept that, you should accept a serious ChiChi who has amazing growth potential. She's blitzing them by at least double in the Saiyan Saga. For them training hard, we're talking nearly a 10 times boost in a year's training. Krillin going from 206 to 1,770, an 8 times 6 boost. Yamcha 177 to 1,480, 8.3 times boost. Tien going from 250 to 1,830, a 7.3 times boost. Human potential is insane, and I won't hear otherwise. Piccolo went from 408 to 3,500, 8.5 times boost, just by throwing Gohan apples for a year. Everyone gets a power growth, including the newly plot-armored ChiChi. If ChiChi were to train alongside these guys for a year in preparation for the Saiyans, she would easily get double the boost, but let's round it down to 15 times after 1 year training with Kami, so 390 to 5,850, meaning she's stomping all over Nappa. Goku goes from 416 to 8,000, which is a 19 times boost in 6 months with King Kai. He's training with a higher ranked god, remember that. So a year non-stop could potentially be 38 times, making Goku's training around 4 times more effective than the others. But ChiChi can only go one training path. Option A 15 times boost with Kami, or option B, train in 6 months with King Kai and getting potentially another 15 times boost when you do the math, which would be less than Goku's 19 times boost. Just to be kind to the Saiyan genetics. Well, it has to be option B, because even though they both result in a similar raw power boost, option B allows ChiChi to learn the Spirit Bomb and the Kaioken. And we know ChiChi with a goddamn Kaioken is the chosen pathway of power. Plus, she needs a technique to amp her power to keep up with Saiyans and their transformations later on, with a 4 times Kaioken pushing her body to 23,400 at maximum at this point. When it comes to Namek, particularly in the anime, Tien and Yamcha could squash the Ginyu Force, showcasing their powers skyrocketed under King Kai from around the 1,000 mark to 50,000, or wherever you put the Ginyu Force. Even Piccolo goes from a low level 3,500 to way above Nail levels, only 6 days with King Kai. Goku goes from 8,000, maybe a bit higher after a Zenkai, to around 90,000 when he arrives on Namek, given at most an 11 times boost, which actually makes Goku's spaceship training the lowest power up of the bunch during this time the story was shifting to Namek, which sounds ridiculous because everyone hypes up Goku's 100 G's training, but that's the truth. Humans and Namekians had more growth potential at that time, which is going to help our ChiChi loads because she's a full-fledged human with a gravity machine going to Namek. Now, ChiChi can't exploit Zenkai boosts, the entire theme of the Namek arc, which gave Goku a huge advantage in the gravity room after smashing a Senzu after each intense near-death gym session, so I won't apply the 11 times boost to her like Goku. I'll drop it to like an 8 times. Considering Piccolo and the others grew even more than Goku under 10 times gravity for a few days with King Kai, so ChiChi gets to a power level of 50,000 by the time she arrives on Namek. Now, because the original plot is generous to Goku, giving him a huge jump from 90,000 to 3 million after bathing in his Zenkai exploitation, I feel like I should be equally as generous because I'm now writing the story where ChiChi is the real hero. So the plot age she will have is somehow meeting Guru after arriving on Namek, before he dies. She gets some of that potential unlocked sometime after Gohan and Krillin does. Krillin had a power of 1,770 during the Saiyan Saga, completed some image training in space for a month, so should be close to 2,000. After getting his power unlocked by Guru, Krillin's power level went to over 13,000 to when he fought the Ginyu Force, and then it went up to 75,000 when he died against Frieza. It's like a slow release instead of an instant one. So an initial 6.5 times boost and 37.5 times boost over time. Gohan's power later rose to 200,000, nearly a 100 times boost over time. It's all to do with the inner potential. Gohan has a ton of it. Makes you wonder where Gohan gets his potential from, right? Chi-Chi has more potential than Krillin, but she's no Gohan. So a 50 times boost to Chi-Chi is acceptable, meaning her power would eventually rise to 2,500,000 in the next couple of hours, making her strong enough to one-shot the Ginyu Force and also one-shot Frieza before he even has chance to transform, potentially being able to prevent Namek's entire destruction. Her potential power could skyrocket to 50 million with a Kaioken times 20, and the Kamehameha stacked on top can push her up to 110 million. Yeah, Frieza would be dead before he finishes his first transformation, let alone another 2 more. Chi-Chi wins the arc. Now, I know she's no power level of 150 million like Super Saiyan Goku in the original story, but I think we've done pretty well for ourselves at this point in the video for Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi! Insane potential. But yeah, let's apply a 3-year time skip training period in preparation for the androids to see how strong Chi-Chi could become. It's after this training I can say with utmost certainty that Chi-Chi's maximum Kaioken power would have easily surpassed Super Saiyan Goku on Namek by that point. The Earthlings grew by an insane amount in that 3-year time skip preparing for the androids in the original story, so even if you apply a low ball 4 times or 5 times boost to Chi-Chi over 3 years, it puts her at 10 million for a power level. Her Kaioken times 20 puts her at 200 million, which exceeds Namek's Super Saiyan Goku's by 50 million, meaning she's strong enough to kill a Super Saiyan at this point. Even by applying a 10 times power amp on Chi-Chi after 1 year in the time chamber, we're looking at a power level of 100 million. Stacking Kaioken times 20 on top, we're up to 2 billion. She could still indirectly make Gohan become a Super Saiyan, as she was more than capable of pushing Goten into a Super Saiyan in the original story, without any of these what-if amps. But even if we apply a 10 times boost over the 7 years, she gets a power level of 1 billion, and her Kaioken times 20 takes her up to 20 billion. Whichever way you want to cut the cake, there's always another power up you can apply to Chi-Chi to see her maximum potential in Dragon Ball Z, and that's by visiting the Elder Kai and getting her potential unlocked, which would increase her power 10-fold or 100-fold, putting her Kaioken times 20 at a high ball of 2 trillion of a power level. There's no reason to doubt she could become stronger than all the human levels in Dragon Ball Super either, who, as we know, can be scaled higher than the Buu Saga at times, which is absurd. The only human that would surpass Chi-Chi in potential is Oob. So that's how strong Chi-Chi could have become if she was an active fighter and the main focus of Dragon Ball. Well, given her incredible potential in early Dragon Ball, which was comparable to Goku's back then in that time frame. And of course, if she had an angel on her shoulder in the writing department, she could have been insanely strong, not just for a human, but going beyond the power of a Super Saiyan. Chi-Chi could kill a Super Saiyan by the time she started training for the androids. Easily. From there we go into GT or Super, the choice is yours. Ultra Instinct Chi-Chi in the Tournament of Power, I guess, why the hell not? We saw a glimpse of something similar with Master Roshi against Jiren, and he's not even the main character. Chi-Chi is this time. But I guess we will only know in another multiverse. But either way, I guess you can thank her human genetics as much as Goku's Saiyan genetics for the reason why Gohan's potential is so huge. But at the end of the day, none of this was what Chi-Chi ever wanted. Chi-Chi wanted to be the best mother to her 2 sons and the best wife possible to her lovely husband Goku. And you know something? She succeeded in that and had an awesome family.